So this meeting will be chaired by our co-chairs. Roy Tyler is the chair of the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, and Chair Kimberly Overman is the chair of the Transportation Management Alliance. So I will ask Commissioner Roy Tyler to start the meeting, and Commissioner Kimberly Overman can end the meeting after that. Thank you.
Thank you, young man. And let me start out by this, so that my grandma won't be upset with me. Welcome to my house. It is an extreme pleasure to have you here. I had my TPO meeting yesterday morning. So for those of you who get kind of meeting fatigued, I really have no cure for it, but welcome aboard anyway. I will have to depart from you for a moment because I forced my optometrist into an appointment. I got something in my eye yesterday that kind of needs some attention, so he squeezed me in at 10 this morning, so I'm going to sneak out, but I will return unless he does something that puts me to sleep, so I hope that doesn't happen. What we will do now is try to move through this agenda as quickly as possible because you guys live on the highway, and the highways between east and west now are a little different than they are when some of us traveled them a few years back. And the challenge we all face is they're going to be much different for those who travel them a few years from now. So one of those conundrums is what we're about, trying to see what we can do to prepare us for the next one. So in that case, let Kimberly give you an overview of what we're going to be doing here.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Roy. I appreciate that. As was mentioned, I'm Kimberly Overman. I'm the chair of the TMA for the 3 counties. And with that, we'll call that meeting to order and ask for the assistance of a clerk. Where is our...
Yeah, Julia Clerk is...
Excellent. Thank you. You're acting as our clerk. If you'll do me a favor and do roll call in order to determine we have a quorum.
So yes, for the record, I am Julia Davis. I do not have a list of your names, so I'm going to just look at you and ask you to tell me your name, and then I will repeat it for the record.
Excellent. Well, I'll start. Well, I'm Kimberly Overman, as chair of the TMA,
Kimberly
Hillsborough
Overman.
County.
And I know a lot of you, so I will work through that, or I can see your name tags after a while. Commissioner Tyler, I can see your name tag. Parag Agrawal, Dave Hutchinson. Ma'am, I don't know you.
Vanessa Ball,
Vanessa Ball. Which county?
Sarasota, Manatee.
Sarasota, Manatee. Gina Torres. Where are you from?
Hillsborough, TPO.
Hillsborough, TPO. Commissioner Cohen, Hillsborough, TPO. Brian Persario, T. Barta. Bobby Edwards, Hart. Again, I'm Julia Davis. Ryan Kordek, Polk TPO. Whit Blanton, Forward Pinellas.
Julie Bajalski, Forward Pinellas.
Okay. Go ahead, Brad.
Brad Miller, PSCA.
David Gwynn.
David
Deputy
Gwynn,
District
yes,
Secretary.
District Secretary.
Bob Esposito.
Bob Esposito, Carl
McKiska.
McKiska. Anyone else down there? Okay, that is the roll call for this morning's meeting.
Okay, I'm not certain, however, the TMA actually has a quorum, however. But glad to have you all here. The only reason do we have a quorum of the TMA?
Oh, I'm on the TMA.
You're on the TMA, right? You're not? And you guys aren't either. So with that, we will just acknowledge that we have minutes of the TMA Leadership Group as of March 11th for future approval, when we have a quorum. And there is also, within your packet, you'll find there's minutes for the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance minutes as of December 10th. And maybe we can readdress that later on in the meeting, should we end up with more individuals from our joining us later. And we can also open up this meeting for any public comment. We have the ability to address anyone that signs up for public comment, and those individuals have an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Do we have anyone that has signed up for public comment at this time? Anyone in the audience that would like to offer some public comment? Seeing none, we can move on to the next item. And we have the approval of the priorities for the Transportation Regional Incentive Program. And with that, I'll recognize Carl Masiga of the Pasco MPO.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. So before us today is our annual process of establishing a list of project priorities under the TRIP program. And there's some materials in your meeting packet. They are broken out by Florida DOT district, both District 1 and District 7, as we do submit these to different districts. The TRIP program itself is part of the growth management legislation that was established in 2005. And this is to use state funds for regional travel. It does require a local commitment of 50% of the project cost. Thank you. It does require a commitment of 50% of the cost to be borne by the local unit of government. It can be more than 50% if you so desire. Projects must be consistent with your planning documents, so it must be part of your long-range plan, consistent with the strategic intermodal system, and it can be also from your then local government comprehensive plan or local government capital improvement program. So this is an annual process, and we did have a ranking process that was done before this meeting, both in District 1 and District 7, and now the projects are here before us. We are asked to then have a list developed by July 1 on an annual basis. So a little history of that. We've had a number of priorities, as you can see on the screen, that have been funded. And I do wish to take the time to thank Florida DOT, both District 1 and District 7, for funding these priorities and helping us advance projects. You can see we've had quite a success from the projects on that list. Now, for this year, I'll start with District 7 and the project priorities. So there are a number of them. These are projects that you saw last year on this screen. On the next screen here, these are also projects you had seen. State Route 52 was added at the December meeting. In District 1, there's a number of new additions to the list. Last year it was Moccasin Wallow Road. The other projects that are shown have been added to the list. And so there's a number of them here. And these were ranked in collaboration between the three MPOs that are represented here. So in total, there are 18 projects, 7 for District 1, 11 for District 7. And on the map on the right of the screen, and also included in your packet, is a map of the entire region showing where these projects are located. And as staff, we do recommend the approval of these project priorities. Given that we don't have a quorum, I would like to ask that maybe we ask the group that is present today if there is a unanimous consent among the members present for the two lists.
Madam Chair, I just want to mention we do have a quorum for SCTPA.
We do.
Oh.
Okay. Well, that is really good news. And so if we are able to actually vote, given that we have the quorum for the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, that's excellent. I can, as the chair of the TMA, ask for approval and priorities of the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, given that these items were discussed at our last TMA meeting with the changes that are being proposed today. Roy, would you like to do the same for your project list?
Yes, undoubtedly. If we have no qualms
So
with
would you
that.
like a motion for both to pass both of those on unanimous consent?
Yes.
That would be fabulous.
Okay, I'd move to pass both of those items on unanimous consent.
And so we have a motion by Commissioner Cohen, a second by Commissioner Ba, is that correct? Ba? I thought that's how you said it. Okay, excellent. And with that, Clerk, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Yeah. Commissioner Overman,
Yes. I'm not sure I vote because I'm not on the alliance, but I'll add my support as the chair of the TMA. Go ahead.
I'm going to go by MPOs.
Good.
So, and I'm not even sure which MPOs are on. Okay, so
yes.
Hillsborough.
Yes.
Okay. Pinellas.
Yes.
Pasco. Sorry, I'm doing the map in my head. Sarasota, Manatee.
Yes.
Charlotte. Okay, confused. Polk.
Yes.
Are there any other TPOs on it? Hernando Citrus, excuse me. So, Hillsborough, I. Pinellas, I. Sarasota, Manatee, I. Polk, I. Pasco, no vote. Hernando Citrus, no vote. I think your motion passed.
That's what I was thinking. So I'm going to suggest that we're going to just do this by, because we don't physically actually have a quorum today when we reviewed the lists across all the lists, but for consensus approval at this point. And if we're able to, maybe later on, we can bring the item back for a formal quorum vote in the event. But at the moment, the motion for consensus approval has passed, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next on the agenda is actually the approval of the priorities for the Regional Multi-Use Trails Project. And we have Tina Russo from the Pasco MPO to provide us with that presentation. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. So I want to thank the group that's been part of this new endeavor. We've done quite a bit of work with this list. We changed the ranking process that we've done, which has been in existence for over 20 years. So that took quite a bit of time, and it is a work in progress. But we have a new ranking system. We also updated the list. There's going to see a few program projects. I didn't get all of them in here, but we had several projects that have been on this list for quite a while that have been completed that we're really, really excited about. And then we've updated the priority list, as you'll see in a few minutes here. We just scored them for the very first time in this past month. This ranking system, again, will be kind of cleaned up through the next year, but we have a really, really good foundation for this list and how we rank projects in the future. So this is the program projects. I wanted to see and show our success. And again, this is just a few of the projects that have been completed or in the next 5-year work program. The underpass in Dunedin and Hernando Citrus was just ribbon cutting, which was just a fantastic facility. And then that picture on the upper left corner is the Suncoast Parkway 2 that just recently opened as well. And I have to show the Starkey Gap in that right-hand corner that was opened about a little over a year ago. That was a big connection for the coast to coast. So Hernando Citrus had several projects that were completed, and this is just a list of those. These are several are in that coast to coast section as well. The one on Suncoast Connector, which is the Good Neighbor Trail that went from basically Suncoast Trail along 50 to the Good Neighbor Trail. A big portion of that was completed this year. So these are some of the Hernando Citrus program. Again, that Dunellen with the Coochie Extension Trail, it was done with this in Hernando Citrus with that underpass at 41 that was also done. So Sarasota had the Legacy Trail Ringling Bikeway connection that completed or construction for this year. And then Pasco, that was a Freudian slip there. Pasco here had, as the Orange Belt, we have several segments that are programmed and several segments that are on the list as well. So these are just a few of those program projects in the TMA area that I wanted to share with folks. again, our success stories that have been happening for the last couple of years. So Pinellas County has, of course, the North Loop in design and under construction as well, which is a big connection to the region as well. So these are those 3 segments that they have in Pinellas County that are programmed. So this is the list. I hope you have some kind of magnifying glass here, but this list is in your agenda packet. So this is the work that we've done this past several months. We've gotten rid of the program projects that are set for construction, and we've updated the new list with those future projects that's seeking regional funding. Again, this is just the beginning of this process that we've done, but there's several. We also scored them. And then the shared drive, and I'll send that, guys, to you later. We finally scored these projects as well. You don't have that in your packet. I'll send that to you. As we always do with these projects, with any kind of ranking system, we have a lot of ties. So I'm hoping that in the next year, when we start looking at that ranking system, we've had lots of discussion, how we can add some scoring that helps with those ties to kind of bring those projects out. We had a huge discussion about rural ranking and urban ranking. As we all know, at the state level, we're really trying to figure out how to connect those gaps in those rural areas. So we're trying to kind of tweak that ranking system to kind of be fair for urban and rural trail projects. So this is the list. As you can see, there's lots of projects on there. There's lots of projects that have been done. And then I wanted to show you our regional map on the left. This was just recently updated. I think there's a press release. We have our new brochure. There's a couple of boxes outside there. But the left map is our new map. And then the coast-to-coast map is that map on the right. So the coast-to-coast has become a really big part of our regional plan as well. If you haven't seen some of the Facebook pages, people come from all over the world to do the coast to coast. They basically ride from Titusville to Pinellas. There's a big gap on 50, but a lot of people come out and do this facility, and they come visit our towns and stay in our hotels, so a big plus there. I'm sure Rob is going to have a big discussion about that this afternoon. But this is the coast to coast and the Sun Trail Network, and then our regional map on the left that we just recently updated. That map is a work in progress because those lines, as we all know, move around. And being a big region, that's really hard to get those lines on that map correctly. And thankful for Hillsborough for doing that. So we launched, is this yours, Wade? So I'm going to let Wade come on up in a minute, and then we can go ahead. We'll do this real quick, you think, Wade, and then we'll kind of move on to the vote. So we think this is a very important part of what we've done as well. This was a project that actually Ford Pinellas did, and Wade's going to do the presentation on it. And go from there.
Thank you. Wade Reynolds, Hillsborough TPO, and I'm going to talk about the Tri-County Trails and Bike Facilities map here. So many thanks to Ford Pinellas especially for their staff's work on this. It was a great collaboration, and Jared Austin in particular, as well as Amy Elmore, who has gotten it on the SCTPA website. I checked last night and it's up there. So this is what the map looks like. It is a fully interactive map with a mobile app to go along with it. The purple lines that you will see on that map are both bike lanes and shared lane markings. That would include buffered bike lanes as well as possibly a cycle track or two in the city of Tampa at least. The green lines are our regional trails. You can see at least in Hillsborough, the Upper Tampa Bay Trail. In Pinellas, the Pinellas Trail stands out. And then the brown/orange lines are our natural surface hiking and horseback riding type of trails, which was very important to some users to have those on there and show where you could access those and how you could access them using the bike network and regional trails system. In Pinellas, at least, they have been able to add the trailheads and some other things. We did combine all of our bike facilities to keep the map clean and to not have too many colors and different shaped lines cluttering it up. So the mobile app, which I mentioned before, people will be able to pull it up on their cell phones, and it will show the location of the user, and you can actually put in, find directions, hopefully using bike facilities to where you would be going. So we did create a app guide for that. Again, thank you to Ford Pinellas for really taking the lead on that. We're going to post those instructions online near where the interactive map is so that people can understand how to download it and then how to use the map once they have. And these links are, of course, on here, the tinyurl.com/tri-county-map. And I'm happy to take any questions, or thank you for your time.
Excellent, thank you very much. It's exciting to see that we're actually marrying the fun stuff and technology together to make it more usable and findable, and I think that's one of the values of having such a comprehensive trail program. Any comments from the board? Any questions?
I had a question just about where
Is
you
your mic on,
download
sir?
The app. I think my microphone's on.
Yes, and that is one of the reasons I want to get those instructions on the SCTPA website. So I'll be reaching out to Amy about that. It has specific instructions on how to download that app, and which app to download, and then how to get it all set up for your use.
But it's not like in the App Store or anything like that?
You actually do have to go to the App Store to buy the app, and we have a step-by-step PDF to define how to do that.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you very much. Good question. It's like always got to go to the App Store. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for the work that you're doing and for your presentation. And not seeing any other discussion from the board, we can, I believe, move on to the next agenda item, which is a presentation regarding the Sunrunner, Tampa Bay's very first bus rapid transit project for connecting downtown St. Pete and downtown St. Petersburg with St. Pete Beach. And with that, Brad Miller is going to do that presentation.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, Ryan Kordick, TPO staff. I just want to clarify, I don't believe we took a vote on the regional trail priorities, or did we?
Yeah, we need to take a vote to
Yeah,
that
I just want to
effect?
make sure.
My
Again, sorry for the
apologies.
interruption, but just want to point that out.
Well, then maybe we should do that. Okay, so I need a motion to vote on. We have a motion to approve the regional trail, multi-use trail project list. And who made the motion?
I did.
Thank you very much. And now, do I have a second? Second? Second by Commissioner Mba from Sarasota Manatee. And with that, please do a roll call.
Okay. Hillsborough, TPO.
Yes.
Pinellas,
Yes.
Pasco, not present. Sarasota Manatee,
Yes.
Polk.
Commissioner Tyler has stepped down.
Right, so we're not present right now, okay. Yes, Hernando Citrus, not present. Your motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Carl, did you have something you'd like to say? Okay, just asking. I wasn't sure. You were reaching for what it looked like you're reaching for the mic, so.
And Madam Chairman, PGTV asked me to remind everybody that when you wish to speak, press the see the blue button, and speak between 6 to 8 inches from the microphone so that you'll pick up. They are conducting the public record for this meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks for the reminder. I appreciate that. Okay. Seeing no other item, we'll recognize Brad Miller for the CEO of Psta. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, everybody. It's good to be here in Haines City. We were just talking about how for this Sunrunner bus rapid transit that I'm going to present here, which we've been working on for a long time, we're transitioning our outreach to try to get out, rather than kind of talking about like the development of it, to actually starting to get the word out to residents and everybody to ride it. It's going to start, and we want people to take advantage of it. So I said, well, I'm going to be going to Haines City, Florida, to present it, a presentation on Sunrunner. Maybe I can get them to ride it. Come on over this fall to St. Petersburg, and I know where I can get you guys some free passes. So again, we're in Pinellas County. This will be the first bus rapid transit service, first rapid transit service of any kind after a lot of efforts in the Tampa Bay area that was successful in receiving federal grant funds for rapid transit from the Capital Investment Grant Program. The map that you see there is basically the southern part of Pinellas County. It's from downtown St. Petersburg on the right-hand side of the slide to the Gulf beaches on the left-hand side. This corridor, which parallels the Central Avenue corridor of St. Petersburg, is the highest ridership corridor in Pinellas County for transit already. It's actually one of the highest in the whole Tampa Bay area. Thousands of riders ride back and forth between the beaches and downtown St. Petersburg. Any of you who've been there know that there's tons of restaurants and development going on in that corridor, and then the beaches are full of hotels and restaurants and things like that. Most of the workers who work on the beach do not live on the beach because they can't afford it, and they don't really get a very good parking spot at the hotels. So they come from St. Petersburg. And so there's a lot of workers who use the transit in this corridor. And then, of course, we have tons of tourists come from other places that want to go to downtown St. Petersburg, go to a Tampa Bay Rays game, go to the beach. This service is going to be up and running in September 2022. It is a 10-mile long corridor. It's going to be operating every 15 minutes all day, 7 days a week. It's going to operate like a train. It's going to be different than a regular bus route. The buses will pull up to the stations. They're not stops, they're stations, which you can see they're a little bit more spaced than a normal bus, our bus line. The vehicles will stop at every stop, no matter if there's anyone waiting there or not, like a train does. All the doors will just open up. You can get onto any door. You can get on the back door or the front door, like a train, and then the vehicle will move on. It has its own dedicated lane to operate in, like a fixed guideway rail system would. If you have a bike or mobility device, you can just bring that right onto the vehicle. You don't have to put it on the front of the vehicle. We have bike racks installed in the vehicle. You pay with your Flamingo Fare mobile ticketing or before you board. So it speeds everything up in that way. We're starting off using hybrid electric buses for the Sunrunner, and then ultimately, hopefully, converting to 100% battery zero emission buses. And again, since this is the Transportation Planning Alliance, I put this slide in just about how long this has been in the works. I have been the CEO of Psta for the last 10 years now, and I'm grateful for that, but I'm the third CEO that has worked on this. Since 2003, this plan was adopted for rapid transit in this corridor, connecting downtown St. Petersburg to the beach. And so we've been working on it now for 20 years. It's finally coming to a reality. It's a $43 million investment in public transit, which is the biggest that Pinellas has ever done. It has a fairly traditional form of funding profile, as you see by the pie chart. Just about 50% of the funding is coming from the federal Capital Investment Grant Program. 25%, we're very grateful, is matches the federal coming from the Florida DOT, and we thank Secretary Gwynn and FDOT for that. We're very grateful. And then the balance of it is coming from Psta and the city of St. Petersburg. On the order of magnitude things, a bus rapid transit program of 10 miles long for $44 million is one of the lowest cost, bus rapid transit systems in the country. that's going on right now. So we're trying to be as efficient as we possibly can. Again, as I mentioned, one of the keys to this rapid transit system is it has its own lane. These lanes, like the picture I've shown there on the right, have just been installed. They have red asphalt all along most of the corridor. They also have the signs that point out that the lane is not 100% dedicated for buses, mostly buses only, or it's a turn lane for cars. The stations are being installed right now. This station is complete, and you can see that in addition to a higher platform, so that when the vehicle pulls up, there's a level boarding, so you can just roll your bike or wheelchair or stroller right onto the vehicle. This station in downtown St. Petersburg, you can see the public art. Every station has a local artist has designed stained glass, a really neat mural that is on every station that the artist has identified things in that station area for this. I also note that this station, like a lot of the corridor, is already seeing development going on right along this corridor. And that's another very exciting part of this whole project. In addition to the transit investment, Psta and the cities have received some federal funds and have completed a transit-oriented development land use study. It's called the Sunrunner Rising Development Study. And this has been now adopted by the city of St. Petersburg and the city of South Pasadena. The next step for this is to now, for those cities, to adopt transit-oriented, the recommendations of the study into their land development codes. The entire corridor was analyzed and Ford Pinellas was a big part of this as well. Obviously, there's different land use and intensities depending on where you are in the corridor. In downtown St. Petersburg, of course, there's lots of high-rises being developed, lots of residential. That can be the most intense development. As you go further west, there's an area that's much more village-oriented. And then when you get along the beach, again, that's a much more commercial development corridor with hotels and restaurants and things like that. Now that this plan has been adopted, the corridor can be developed in a much more intense way, and that will also allow the development to go where the transit infrastructure is in place. So you don't need to build as many parking spaces. You can have parking maximums instead of minimums in this corridor. You can see the increase in residential and commercial development along this corridor thanks to the bus rapid transit. I just put a couple other pictures in my presentation to highlight the construction that's going on right now. Again, I just got word that the red lanes are now, the asphalt is now all in. This is very recent pictures of them installing the stations, the public glass on the art, the railings and such like that. Again, this is a picture of inside the vehicle. The bike racks are kind of unique. Again, you wheel your bike onto the vehicle like a train. And then it's this kind of innovative pulley system. You just put the wheel right into the bike rack thing and it lifts it up vertical. In addition, we have worked very closely. One of the successes of the project is working closely with the cities and the residents. We've had a ton of community involvement along the way. We have installed, in some places, at the citizens' request, some traffic signals. Also made improvements to the underground utilities in the city of St. Petersburg that we can pay for with the project, but they benefit the community. In one location in South Pasadena, the citizens couldn't get across the road without a pedestrian crossing that they had been asking for a long time, but it didn't meet the warrants to have one until the Sunrunner came along. Now, because there's a station right there, now we were able to work with the Florida DOT and get a crossing there. And the citizens are very, very happy. So again, We are in the throes of training our operators, completing the construction, installing the transit signal priority so that when the vehicles pull along, they will extend the green. This, of course, benefits the cars running in the other conventional lanes as well, because then they get an extended green. Everything seems to be moving along very well this summer, and we plan to open this up after, again, 20 years of effort. We hope to have a big celebration. We will invite all of you, even from Haines City, to come and try it out starting this fall. I think that concludes my presentation. Glad to answer any questions.
Brad, thank you. That is so exciting to see this project finally become reality. For those of us that, for example, in Hillsborough, with our transit development project, our mobility project that ultimately might someday, some year, some centuries look similar to this, we're very excited to see not only how, recognizing how long it took you to do this, but to be able to see how it's worth the pain. And the reason I ask that is if at this point you could get a benchmark on property values in the area, of rental values in the area, of travel times and where people are going, and the increase in the property taxes that will be generated as a consequence of this investment, it would be really helpful to be able to show where the economics of doing this kind of project pay themselves back rather quickly.
Yeah.
And I anticipate that will be very easily done, or at least easily measured. Because what we don't realize and what we don't often talk about is when we're able to do this kind of economic development, this transit investment, what it really does to the bottom line of the communities of which they're built. And make sure that people understand that investing in it actually does have a really nice return. I've seen it in other communities and other parts of the country, but we really haven't done that maybe as robustly because it just doesn't exist. But if we were able to show that, then it might not take 30 years or 20 years for something like this to show up. So thank you very much. I'm going to recognize you. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. I just wanted to add, if you can hear me, I just wanted to add that this is really a catalyst project for Pinellas County, and we are already working on the next two corridors that would tie into the Sunrunner project. And with the help of the Florida Department of Transportation, on 34th Street South, which is US 19, we have it started out as a resurfacing project. We did a lane elimination study and justified putting in the same asphalt pavement that would create a bus and turn only lane on 34th Street. Psta has committed to operating limited stop express service. It won't be full bus rapid transit initially, but then we're also funding transit signal priority in the same corridor, so that'll tie into the Sunrunner project. And then the next corridor is Alt 19, where we're working on what's called a corridor transition plan to turn that very suburban corridor into a more urban transit-ready corridor. And that will also tie into Sunrunner and connect into downtown Clearwater. So these are the next two, and there'll be north-south corridors tying into this very southern corridor. So I'm optimistic that we'll get there eventually, but you mentioned the 20-year horizon, and the Alt 19 corridor hopefully won't take 20 years, maybe it'll be 10 years, but the 34th Street corridor is under construction starting in about a year. So that will be the next BRT corridor in Pinellas County. So you got to start somewhere, and I think this is just a good example of where we're starting, and we've got the next ones queued up.
Thank you, Mr. Blanton. I truly appreciate that. As we heard earlier with our trails, connecting the dots gets to a point where we hit that sort of that consensus where it really starts working. And this is a good example of a first step, and it's great to hear that Fort Pinellas is working on creating the additional steps. Is there any other comments? Secretary Gwynn.
Yeah, first I'd like to say, and Brad and Whit been great partners as this project's been evolving. And I think it is a real good example of how we can partner the department and local agencies and transit agencies for these types of projects. And I know this afternoon there's discussion about how do we generate local funds to be able to do more, because I think everybody understands the real key to getting really big, meaningful transit projects is to access the federal funds. And the first step in that is the local funds, and the state funds can match it. But the other thing we were able to do on these projects, and we're also doing it on the Tampa Heights Mobility Project, is we're leveraging highway funds to keep the transit project costs down.
Yeah.
Because that won't count against you in the formula when you're trying to show the benefit cost to, so when we have highway projects that we're gonna do anyway, a resurfacing, a rehabilitation, a drainage project, something, we can go ahead and use that to really help to justify better justify the investment on the Federal Transit Administration side when we show the cost is actually lower because we're leveraging the highway program to do some of that. I would also just say, sometimes it's frustrating that we have to go through certain processes to get to the point where we can approve things like a lane elimination. But Brad and Whit will both tell you, there was no lack of people who did not want this to happen. And they were very loud and and so we have to be careful that when we say we're going to eliminate lanes on a highway, especially a state highway, that we follow the process so that we can defend it and it doesn't just be taken away because we didn't show that we went through the adequate process to prove that it could be done. The other part of that is we do require that there be we call it a premium service, but we're flexible on what that premium service might be. On 34th, it's not going to be a BRT, but it's just a little more frequent bus service. Right. Because at the same time, we want to be able to not have on the first week it opens up, we have somebody sit out there like they will and count the buses. There was only one bus an hour, and then it just becomes its own story. So we really appreciate the partnership. We think there's a huge potential for things like bus rapid transit out there. But just work with us on the process. We'll help you to do the best we can to leverage our highway funds, and I'm hoping that we'll see a lot more of these projects starting to come out in the next few years. Both I know LK and District 1 has the same feeling on that. So, and it was a great project.
Thank you very much, Secretary Quinn. Mr. Agarwal.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you for giving such a good presentation. I know you mentioned that it took us around 20 years to complete this project, and you have been in your position for almost 10 years now. What are some of the key challenges you faced? I know you can take the entire afternoon, but still, what are some of the key challenges that you face, and how did you overcome those? So like again, in Polk County also, we are working on a transit master plan, but we always, the questions which we face is like investing in transit versus widening the roads. But again, so what are some of the key challenges that you face, at least in your 10 years with the transit agency?
Yeah, well, thank you. No doubt, and as Secretary Gwynn pointed out, there have been challenges that we've had to, I think that the key to us overcoming them have been the partnerships that we've been able to work together. Certainly, along in the last decade, there have been lots of folks that are very concerned about either the elimination of a road that they have today. Lots of folks said to me, there's never any traffic on this. It's the greatest road ever because there's way too many lanes and it's wide open. I can go 75 miles an hour in downtown St. Petersburg. Like, I think the speed limit is a little bit lower than that. But trying to work with them and discuss how we've done all of the studies and we can repurpose this lane. Again, it's not 100% just for buses. It's basically a turn lane, which they need, the road needs anyway. And it's been amazing to see. And then there's been other concerns along the way, just about the discussion about increased economic development. Is that something that every community wants? Lots of neighborhoods and folks don't want to see their neighborhood change. And to try to communicate that has been a key issue along the way. But it's amazing, once the construction is up and running, once the lanes are in, quite frankly, a lot of the folks that came to the meetings that Secretary Gwynn and I attended are not there. Once they can see it, no, it's not going to hurt them anyway. we've, I think, made some great strides. And that will help, as Whit was just describing, this be a catalyst project, a very successful launch to this, we hope, that will then spur on other quarters. And maybe the hurdles for the next quarter won't be as great.
Thank you. Commissioner Ball.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I just wanted to say to all involved in this endeavor, congratulations. It is so impressive. I was telling Dave that I would love for you to come down and speak at the Sarasota Manatee MPO. And I know Mark Riker's in the audience from the MPOAC, and truly, it's something that we should share, because most of us in Florida on the east and west coast have the problem of moving people, you know, on and off our islands, and it's a major problem, and there's no easy solution to it. So I am very jealous. I wish this was opening in September in Manatee County, but I'll forego and say congratulations to all, and love to hear more, and I will be there in September to try this out. So thank you for sharing this. It's very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hutchinson.
Thank you. I think that along with the value of the collaboration on our plans and priority lists, that the sharing of these success stories is one of the true values of this formerly known as the CCC, Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance. And this is a great example of that, and how we can all learn from each other, and, you know, not just share in each other's successes, but build on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I just want to add to, because we saw each other recently at the REACH conference, one of the key elements of this particular success story, and I'm going to call it that even though you're just about to launch, but is that it creates an enormous amount of resilience in your community for the citizens and the workforce in that community. All of us know that we are facing some really high inflation rates and gas rates. This is putting a great deal of pressure on our service economy workers significantly because of just the level of incomes and the flexibility of being able to move from having to drive to having an access to transit. We're already seeing in Pinellas, where you have a robust transit system as compared to, say, Hillsborough's, that people are making the conversion to using transit as their budgets are feeling a little bit of squeeze from the inflation. So creating that resiliency in our community can truly allow some stability in our economic growth and pay off that. The other thing, excuse me, is the return on investment on a parking space is quite limited. Mm-hmm. So utilizing this so that you can address the lack of parking available on your beaches, you know, in those areas, really does make a difference and takes the pressure off of the parking that oftentimes ends up in our communities. I've gone to several events in St. Petersburg, and you can tell that there's some limited parking lots, but there's also the trolleys that run around in the area. But if you did happen to drive there, you can still park in the neighborhoods within a restricted management process and not invade and just, you know, put the community in a difficult position where they can't park their own cars. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing and being able to share that information for communities that are becoming more dense, that are having higher levels of population, where utilizing a transit asset and methodology creates greater resiliency and mobility in a community is a real opportunity to get a good return on investment. So thank you very much. We're looking forward to hearing all your great metric stories about the success of this program. And like I said, we all are hugely envious. So thank you very much for being here today. Not seeing any other questions, we will move to old and new business. As you can see on the agenda, we have the request to save the date for the Gulf Coast Safe Streets Summit. It's always, very well received, very well attended, and we learn a great deal at that location. It's November 2nd through the 4th. It is currently being located at the RP Funding Center in Lakeland, Florida. So mark your calendar, save your date, and plan on visiting Lakeland. And then the next item on the old business, or to be new business, is we have some presentation slides as part of the information packet from the passenger rail workshop that was presented by the MPOAC Freight and Rail Committee. There's a link in your agenda. I actually did have an opportunity to watch a majority of that workshop. And I would say, although Carl has stepped out of the room, it was really great. It really talked about the funding mechanisms, the ways that it needs to, what the process looked like, how the federal dollars in the programming needs to work. When you're really analyzing whether or not a regional rail system needs to operate, and then some of the complexities associated with our existing rail corridors and how to work with it. So it was a fabulous workshop. So if you have time, take a look at the PDF, but also take a look at the video, because it is available online to watch. Are there any questions or new business items that we'd like to offer to the TMA as well as the Suncoast Planning Alliance? Unfortunately, Commissioner Tyler's not been able to return yet. So with that, Mr. Blanton, you're recognized.
The staff directors have been talking about our next meeting agenda, and one of the things we wanted to do was share some of the applications that we're putting together for the Safe Streets for All program, which is the new federal bipartisan infrastructure law. There's competitive funding for safety projects, and those projects are due September 15th, so we thought we would take the opportunity to share what we're putting together in terms of applications.
Excellent.
And that'll be a subject of our next meeting, at least part of the agenda.
That's excellent. I'd look forward to hearing that as well. Additionally, I wanted to bring back that at the last TBARTA meeting, because our representatives are not here today. Yes, you are. Okay. Could you give us an update on the TMA's request to work with TBARTA on analyzing the rail right-of-ways that CSX involves as far as the Brooksville and the Clearwater line?
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't see you down there. My apologies.
Brian Psta, TBARTA staff. So staff, we are working on the procurement to do the CSX corridor passenger rail study. That process is continuing to move forward. However, while that has been going on, FDOT has had some discussions with CSX. I believe they've had 2 meetings. And, if I say anything incorrect, Secretary Glenn, please step in and correct me. My understanding is they've had 2 meetings with CSX representatives. At the first meeting, it was CSX had stated they were not open at this time to selling the right-of-way for the Brooksville and Clearwater subdivisions, but they would be open to leasing the tracks. At the second meeting that they had, it seems like the story changed a little bit more, where CSX said, in their words, now is not a good time to be talking about passenger rail on those 2 corridors. So it seems like even the leasing option may be off the table with them. They did extend an offer to come to the Tampa Bay area either in late summer or early fall to speak to elected representatives in the Tampa Bay area to communicate that more clearly. At the last TBARTA board meeting, I briefed the TBARTA board on what I just told you. The action that the TBARTA board took was they asked staff to come back at our July meeting at the policy committee and the board and propose it and discuss it, have a discussion on, is there a way forward to continue with the study. The board last month did not feel they could take action because it wasn't a specific agenda item, so it will be an agenda item at our July meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that report. I wasn't able to physically attend that meeting, but I did hear the conversation. And I do recognize CSX is in sort of a dance with changes in their federal regulations. That would probably give them pause to be able to make any other kinds of commitments. But the study itself was really to evaluate the right-of-way. to look at what's there, the condition of the track, the condition of the crossings, what does the real estate look like? And not to start negotiating with CSX at this point. But I know FDOT had reached out to them, and it does appear that CSX seems to have their hands full with trying to address how the regulations have changed, how they operate within their rail system. So I would suggest if the item comes back to the TBARTA board that we table the conversation for now. But the TMA did ask for TBARTA to sort of take the lead on doing that evaluation. Secretary Gwynn, would you like to offer some guidance on how we should proceed with maybe just the timing on this more than anything else?
Yeah, so I do think that, and so we meet with CSX regularly because we deal with them on lots of issues. They cross our roads and we cross their railroads all over the place. And the topic came up just that they were really struggling right now, I think, they're working with Amtrak. They're trying to figure out, I think the one issue up they're looking at is a route between Mobile and New Orleans, I believe. But I think they don't want to do anything now that would maybe hurt them in their, whatever they're doing on that. So they said, they did agree to us. We told them there is a lot of interest in the area for the use of the rail lines for commuter rail. They did say, well, we would be willing to come down and meet with a larger audience of elected officials and others and have an open discussion about it, but probably the best time to do it would be maybe in the late summer, early fall. So I think once we have the chance to sit down with them and find out a little more, then that would probably be a good time to then determine what type of study should we need to do. The lease versus sale issue does provide a lot of complications that we'd have to consider as well, because it's one thing if we buy the tracks. If it's a lease, then it typically goes to the locals. And so there's just things we'd have to discuss among ourselves as far as what we want to do. But I think in the fall, hopefully we could at least start to do an inventory, assuming that they just don't shut us down completely.
Okay. So for those of you that are on the TMA board that are here, or just the Hillsborough TPO members, would we want to make a recommendation that we table that request until November or December? Would that be a time that would be appropriate for when we could reapproach this circumstance rather than kill the project? Because I got the sense from the TBARTA board, they're like, well, why are we going to spend the money to do this if we don't really know what we're needing? The issue I had with that conversation was we still need to know what we're negotiating. The evaluation still needs to be done either way. But whether or not it's the appropriate time to do that may be the question. And that's what I'd like to get some feedback from the board. Commissioner Cohen, you recognize.
Just, since I've never been able to ask you about this because of the sunshine, and I have this opportunity now. What is the scope of what's being studied? Is it all of the CSX tracks in the area, or is it just specific lines?
I believe the direction, and correct me if I'm off base here, but I believe the direction was to ask TBARTA to evaluate the Clearwater and Brooksville line. That's the lines that run basically from Brooksville down to downtown Tampa, and then the other line that runs from basically where, off of Bush near Yingling and runs straight across through Clearwater and down to downtown St. Pete. So that's just a rough description of where it goes.
Does that include the South Tampa Peninsula or all the way to the base, or does it not?
No, it doesn't.
That's not even part of this study?
No, that's not the scope of that particular request. And the reason we wanted to do it is because there's a lot of different conditions all along that line. There's skinny parts, there's fat parts, there's lots of development in some areas, there's no development in some areas. And the track there hasn't had a significant amount of traffic on it on some sections of that. So our goal was to really, what does the landscape look like? What does the right-of-way look like? What does the rail condition look like? So what's given whatever modality would be considered, or whatever negotiating point that we would consider, whether it's buying it, leasing it, partnering with it, adding on to it, any of the above. We just needed a landscape of what that looks like. And that was the scope, is not how much are we going to pay for it. It's what is there to work with, in beginning to have a conversation on what's possible for that right-of-way. Because the goal here is to protect the right-of-way for future use, as it pertains to whether it be, you know, a BRT or a rail line or whatever. But that right-of-way is there, and we wanted to get a good sense on what's possible in that location. So I would suggest that maybe we pen a letter to T-BARTA indicating that we're willing to ask them to wait until later on in the year so that they have direction from the TMA. Is that a reasonable request? I mean, I can't make that motion because I'm chairing the meeting, but can I get a motion to that?
I make that motion.
Excellent. So we have a motion, and do we have a second? Is there? I need a TMA member, right? Well, maybe we got a TMA member later because there's several items that we're going to need quorum votes on. But let's table that motion for later on in the day, and hopefully we'll have other members that can consider this. But I do believe it's important to clearly identify what the timing looks like under the circumstances and give T-BARTA some guidance on how they can move forward with our request for them to do that work. So thank you. Any other new business, old business? Mr. Hutchinson.
As follow-up to the overall discussion of rail, and you know, we talked about the MPOAC rail workshop, and of course your workshop from early in the year was also a great discussion and impetus to some of the efforts that are going on. I'm wondering if either Secretary Gwynn, or I see we have a District 1 representative, Abra Horn, here, perhaps they have an update on the discussions with Brightline between Orlando and Tampa. Is there an update? You know, I hear, well, you know, Brightline's ready to ramp up, but I haven't heard that from, you know, any official source. And anyway, just wanted to know. I expect that will be an ongoing topic.
Yeah, I can try to do it, and if Abra has something to add in here. But so, quite honestly, the negotiations between Brightline and DOT are handled out of our central office. It's done. It spans multiple districts, and Brad Thoburn and his team are kind of heading that up. What I can tell you is that you know, there was a lease agreement signed that laid out the parameters for how they could use the I-4 corridor to get from essentially the Disney area down to Tampa, exiting Tampa supposedly somewhere in the Ybor City area. And we in that document define what would be Brightline's responsibilities and what would be our responsibilities, and everybody agreed to it, and it seems like it was reasonable. I don't know what their plans are from obtaining financing. They're going after federal funds, I hear, but they're also not necessarily as, you know, they could be doing things that we're not party of. They're a private entity, and things given to us sometimes become public records. So I don't know. There may be other things. But one thing I will tell you is that it does seem like over in the Orlando area, they've been making some progress. There was concerns about how do they get from the airport up to the Disney area, different routes. And it seems like it seemed like the Sunrail and the Brightline were working together to try to find a common solution. So I think they're making progress, but I really couldn't. Brightline would probably be better to address that side of it. But there's progress, and we did define a route that they could get through the I-4 corridor in the median.
Maybe during the meeting where we bring CSX and possibly Amtrak and Brightline all to the table at the same time, and we can actually see some coordination in what's happening or what's possible within Florida on a regional basis, might be a good plan. Yes, ma'am, you're recognized. Yeah, there you go.
There we go. So I know that the Howard Franklin is being built with the strength to hold a train. But I mean, is everybody thinking about how we could get a train over from Tampa to Pinellas County?
So we did provide,
think your mic's on.
in the construction of the bridge, that a portion of it would be constructed, and a portion in the middle would be constructed strong enough to handle light rail. It wouldn't handle a commuter rail similar to Brightline, but it could handle a light rail solution from across the bridge. And so that is a possibility, it's in there, but other than that, there hasn't been any planning or anything that I know of done yet to get to that point. But it is the bridge is constructed so that that could be done without having to go in there and reconstruct that portion that would require for a light rail.
Okay, and I had a completely different question on something else, but I didn't want to hijack that gentleman's time, so are you good?
And to answer your question, whether or not the rail runs down Howard Franklin, the Clearwater line runs right across the top, runs from the university area for all
Yeah.
practical purposes, right across the top of the Tampa International Airport.
Right.
Through Clearwater and to downtown St. Pete.
No, that's all good. I'm just looking at if that doesn't happen.
If that doesn't
I'm
happen,
just
right.
listening to the options, really.
Sure.
It's not one over the other. And in addition to that, I would say that we need to, take a fresh look at that 41-mile bus rapid transit thing, because we don't know which of these things may come into play, and I think we have to be open to all of them until we can determine that.
Agreed.
So that whatever the appropriate planning is and the appropriate steps, that they're all moving forward until we can get a real good handle on what can actually be achieved.
Excellent, thank you. Secretary Quinn.
And I would just mention one thing not to forget is that there still is going to be the possibility when we get express lanes built across the Howard Franklin in the West Shore interchange, and ultimately tying to downtown Tampa and downtown St. Pete and to the veterans and the airport. There's an excellent opportunity in there for an express bus in express lane system that could be built. They're using it very successfully in Fort Lauderdale area. It's very well used. That's another tool that we have in the toolbox. Depending on what we support and what we can afford, that's something that could very well evolve as a potential regional transit solution as well.
Excellent, thank you very much. Carl.
Thank you. As we're talking about
Is your mic
transit-
on? Yeah.
The blue light is on, is
Okay,
it?
thank you.
Yeah, okay. As we're looking at transit in the region, and particularly going back with the CSX discussion, I do want to also point out that we should definitely make an effort to be involving our federal elected officials as we try to advance any solution.
Absolutely, absolutely. Keep them in the queue. Excellent. Okay, any other comments regarding that item? We'll bring it, I'll make a note to try and see if we have additional attendees this afternoon where we can grab a vote on that particular direction so that T-part is more clear. You wanted to bring up another item, ma'am? I did. Oh, okay. It was the BRT. It was the BRT. Okay, great. Any other new business, old business before we adjourn? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.